Solving Quadratic Equations by Maria, Jonathan, and Luis.
There are many ways to solve quadratic equations. For example, we have factoring, square root property, completing the square quadratic formula, and graphing. These first two will sometimes work for you. These last ones will work. So our first method will be factoring. The first step is to find something that adds up to 10 and multiplies to 56. In this case, we get 14, so we would get x plus 14 and x minus 4, and then we set it equal to 0. Then we would get x plus 14 equals 0, and we subtract 14 to both sides, and we get x equals negative 14. And on the other one, we would do x minus 4 equals 0, and we add 4 to both sides, and we get x equals 4. So our solution would be x equals 14 and x equals 4.
Alright, so for the next method, we have completing the square. What you want to start with is getting the 56 over to the other side. So you're going to add it, and so that gives you 56 over here, and you're left with x squared plus 10x equals 56. But you also want to leave an empty space here on both sides. From there on, you use a formula, which is parentheses, and then you got the b over 2. That's going to be squared. So we have the a, which is your x, and then the b is your 10. Well, not a p, a b. And so the b, you just fill it in into the formula, and you're left with 10 over 2 squared. And you solve that, so you're left with 5 squared. So once you're left with the 5 squared, you have to solve for that as well. 5 times 5 is just 25. And from there you bring this 25 and you plug it into the spaces that we have over here. So we've got 25 and 25. And then you can add these two, which brings you down to 81. And this formula also helps us just factor this out, which comes down to parentheses x plus 5 squared equals 81. And since you have to get the x on its own, you have to get rid of the square. And to do so, you can just square root both sides, which brings you to x plus 5, because it cancels out the square here, equals 9 times 9 is 81, so that'll be the square root. So x plus 5 equals 9. Since it is a square root as well, it's not only 9, but plus or minus 9. From here on, you can just subtract the 5 to both sides. And that gives you x equals, since it's two solutions, it being plus or minus, you have 9 minus 5, not 4, 9, and then negative 9 minus 5. So this answer up here would be 4, and this one here is negative 14. Alright, and that's how you solve using the square.
Graphically, to find your solutions, you would look at your graph and see where it would touch on the x-axis. In this case, our solutions are x equals negative 14 and x equals 4.
So we just showed you 3 ways to find how to solve quadratic equations. First one was factoring and completing the square, and also graphing. There's, like I said, 5 ways. Not all of them will always work. The first two being factoring and finding the square root. Those will sometimes work. Completing the square, quadratic formula, and graphing will pretty much always work.
Thanks for watching.